Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Prepper Chicks After Dark. We're having some technical glitches again tonight, it looks like. But hey, we're all here. We're all happy. We are here to play some Conflicted. And if you ask, it is a survival prepping game that you can use within your survival group to throw out some scenarios, back your way out of, see how you're all going to react to different strangeness that is going out there. So I want to welcome everybody here. It is March the 25th, and we are sitting in a balmy sub-freezing temperature back in Indianapolis. Left Florida way behind, but happy to be home. So let's get this party started because we have some special guests today. So back with us, we have Alika. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks again, Lori. Excuse me. I am with SHTFready.com. We are a prepping survivalist forum that shares ideas and help each other learn and prepare. We keep the politics out and we focus on prepping. Everyone is welcome. You heard of the ant and the grasshopper story? Our website teaches you to be the ant.
Awesome. Thank you for being with us again. Also back with us, one of my favorite authors. I'll put that out there. One of my, because, whatever. G. Michael Hopps, welcome back to the show, dude.
Hi, Lori. How you doing?
I'm good. Waiting for your next book to come out.
It's coming May 27th. Sanctuary will be out there for all to read.
And I am quite excited about that. And you have a special add-on addition to your book?
Add-on? Oh, you mean what I was referencing to you earlier today?
No, about the thing that JD's...
Oh, yes. Well, a little bit about myself, since for those who haven't heard, my name is G. Michael Hoff. I'm the author of the best-selling series, The New World. I've got two novels out there right now, two best-selling novels, The End and The Long Road. The third in the series, Sanctuary, will be out May 27th. I am also excited to announce that me and JD, or Survival Logics, have partnered up to create a Conflicted game around the series. And that will be coming out as well on May 27th. It'll be Conflicted, the New World series.
That is exciting because I love your books, and I can't wait to see how the deck comes out with that. I've seen the prototypes for it, and it looks amazing.
Yeah, it looks really, really good. I'm really excited myself.
Which brings us to the creator of Conflicted Altogether. JD, welcome.
Hey, thank you so much for having me back, Laurie.
Hey, it's always a joy to have you. So why don't you give everybody a rundown of what Conflicted is and how it got started?
Conflicted is a scenario-based card game. Basically, you all discuss scenarios that nobody wants to face after the collapse of society. Things that we most likely don't think about right now because we don't have to. And then the discussion revolves around your decisions. How would you handle certain situations? And the goal is to live another day and keep your humanity. Yeah, keep what makes you human. I'm excited to get a game going based on Jim Michael's novels, and I can tell you it's looking awesome. I can't wait for us to publish it. It's gonna be great. I'm really excited about it.
I'm excited for that. But thank you so much for rolling us out and letting us have the joy of racking our brains on Tuesday nights trying to figure out how we're gonna survive. But on to our special guests, and I'm really excited about this. And I actually think I saw these guys first on G. Michael's page and kind of snagged it from there. But was doing my troll thing on Facebook one day and saw an advertisement for a movie that's coming out called Goodbye World. And I wasn't stalking them or anything like that. That's a harsh word to use. But let's just say that, I put a few feelers out there and some people from the show decided that they would like to come on our show tonight. So welcome, Dennis. Let's start with you and then you can introduce your entourage here. But Dennis, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Hey, Lori. It's great to be here. I'm really excited about this. I know you're going to kick my ass in this game. But it should be fun, and the deck is really cool. JD sent us some decks, and they're kind of amazing. I'm here. My entourage is pretty small tonight. It's my producing partner, Casey Suhan, and she's gonna, join in with us.
Awesome.
And every now and then.
Welcome, Casey. It's always cool to have another chick on here.
Thanks so much for having us. This is really rad.
I am so excited. The movie looks amazing. I've been, putting it all over my Facebook page, but if you guys would take a moment and tell everyone a little bit about the movie so they get an idea, and maybe we can share some links into the chat room so everybody can track it down from there. If you guys want to discuss it, I'll go ahead and throw some links in there so they can track it down.
Great, cool. Yeah, first of all, it's good to have like a fellow Hoosier. I'm from Indiana as well. Casey's from Chicago, so
close enough.
Yeah, close enough. Honorary Hoosier. But the film is there's an element of it that has to do with prepping for a collapse. It's primarily basically like a relationship comedy or drama about a group of friends who are reunited because of this collapse. And where they're reunited is at a off-the-grid house that one of their friends has established in Northern California. And they're sort of away from where things are going down, which is in urban areas. And so for a lot of the movie, they're just left with their own sort of mini apocalypses that are going on. They're mini collapses. They're relationships that they thought were solid but really aren't. And into that, towards the end of the movie, comes the thing that they were trying to escape from those areas. So it's basically, giving you a story where you've got a microcosm of society with our little group of friends. And it's also looking at the macro society and what would happen if some of the things that we depend upon are taken away from us. And, it's going to be pretty exciting to see what people think about it when it comes out. It's been a year or two now that we've been, shepherding it through shooting and the post-production process. And the film we made before this was really political. And this one has some political elements to it. And it's always fun for us to hear what people think and to provoke conversation.
Yeah, and it looks like, one of the things that we yell about all the time is, we're not about doomsday prepper kind of scenarios. We understand everyday life kind of things can make a necessity to prep ahead of time. We've seen that happen over and over again with tornadoes, floods, hurricanes, everyday kind of life, unemployment, the economy. We get into the bigger picture of things out there, and it's a lot of people don't like to look at it. They would just want to stay in their own little fluffy world. And that's one of the things I appreciate about your movie is it will get people thinking about the possibilities, even for just a minute to maybe think, oh, well, maybe I should put a little extra food or water behind, aside, just in case, I think that's going to be an awesome aspect of your movie that's coming out. Now, you are set to release very shortly.
Yeah, April 4th. It's about a week and a half, which is next Friday. The chat room right now, we get a trailer looks darker than a romantic comedy. That's true. The reality is that when people try to sell a movie, they definitely go for all the action elements. And there's some action in this movie, but it's really mostly about the relationships between the people. And I think you're right. Like, the thing is, it's like, these questions that you guys are talking about on your show and that come up in books like G. Michael's, which I'm looking forward to reading. They look really interesting. And I love this genre. And I think I think people like it because it's not separate questions from what we deal with every day. It's the same thing, It's like, it's how do we interact with each other? And when you pull away all the superficial nonsense that we deal with on a daily basis, you're left with these questions of what a community is and how you survive and how you deal with people and what your morality and ethics are. And it gets really to the bottom of it. And so I think that's what we're hoping to do. And it'll be fun. I think you're going to invite us back on after the movie comes out. And
the 15th. Yes, on the 15th.
Tell us if they hated it or liked it or whatever. And that'll be fun too. But yes, so April 4th, it's going to be in theaters in 11 cities. And it will also be on VOD, which is video on demand. If you have cable, which I don't, but I understand that some people do, and on iTunes if you're into that. And for those of you who are criminals, I'm sure it'll be pirated and put on YouTube as well.
No, nothing like that would never happen.
No, for sure. Maybe BitTorrent.
Now, one thing, and we still have to work out the details on this, but because you are a fellow Hoosier, you're going to be coming back to Indianapolis sometime in the near future, and we might be able to put something together to do a showing here in Indianapolis that maybe we can invite some Peep World people out there to come and enjoy it with us.
Dude, that'd be so awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be doing a Bloomington screening on April 29th. Along with our film Bold Native, which you can watch for free right now at boldnative.com, which is another movie that we made previous to this. And then we're going to do a Wabash screening, which is the town I'm from, May 1st, and then May 2nd we're going to be in Indianapolis. And I think the IMAX theater there is going to hold it over for a little while, but we're going to do like a Q&A May 1st, and then we'll see what happens.
Awesome. Yeah, later on, Dennis and I are going to work out maybe we can do a little contest on the Prepper Chicks page and maybe invite some of you guys out here, do a little, dine and movie kind of contest so we can invite some of you guys over and go watch the movie together and discuss it. And, and then again, like Dennis said, they're going to be back on the 15th after the show, see how their answers change.
Yeah, you'll have our co-writer and producers, and really seriously, like, it'd be cool to hear what you like and don't like about it. I love this little Daryl Dixon JPEG over on the left that you guys have going on. I don't know where that's coming from.
I'm a huge Walking Dead fan, like to the point.
Sunday's episode was great, right? Did you like this last one?
Well, so like my dog, I have a Great Pyrenees. His name is Dixon. I named him after, yeah. The last couple episodes have been a little messed up. But that's why we love it.
Yeah.
It gets you thinking. But let's go ahead and get started here. It's about a quarter after. And let's see what we can roll with. So, that being said, I'm going to throw it out on the floor. Does anyone have a card that they would like to dive into first? And I hear crickets.
Well, normally it's JD that kind of runs with this. JD?
Well, I got one, if nobody has one.
All right, lay it out there. Let's see what we got.
Okay, so this is from number 2 of Conflicted. And you guys can get this at conflictedgame.com/prepperchicks. It goes like this. You have been preparing for a complete collapse of modern civilization with 3 other families. Our members have sacrificed themselves financially to ensure the survival of their loved ones. Combined, all have about a year's worth of supplies of a secured survival retreat. You were the last one to arrive at the location, and to your surprise, 2 of the families have broken protocol. They have brought extra friends and family members that will shave approximately 40% supply timeline. Your retreat is somewhat new, and renewable food sources won't be ready before the food runs out. How would you handle the situation? So you agree with some buddies that you're going to have a retreat together, and when the time comes, you get there and they brought extra people. So
cut your supplies by, did you say 40%?
Yes. If that happened to you, Laurie, how would you handle it? You're faced with the situation. What would you do?
We've talked about this in our family. Me and Ed, my husband Eddie's in the chat room tonight. And I want to give a shout out to everybody in the chat room. You guys are awesome. And yes, they play along as we go. So if you're listening out there off time, join us sometime in the chat room. But my husband and I have talked about this. I don't have personally a lot of blood relatives that are going to show up at my house. It's just the way it is. Both my parents are gone. I'm kind of orphaned. I have a brother that I'm tight with, but that's about it. Him, on the other hand, and I don't know if it's his heritage or what it is, but we have sat down and talked about, okay, in a perfect world, it would be his brothers and their immediate family, their children, and their spouse. But because of the dynamics of his family, it would also include ex-wives and, their spouses and probably second cousins, third removed, and anybody else they might drag along with them. So, we've anticipated that in our preparedness, that it's not going to be about, probably the people that we anticipate. It would be maybe a little easier for me to turn people away than it would be for him if they came knocking at the door. I mean, his brothers are a given, but when we're talking about farther down the line and them showing up, that's a whole nother equation out there. But if we already had a deal worked out and they brought people and I didn't get there fast enough, it is what it is at that point. Could you turn someone away? Probably not, if they've already gotten to the place and they're established. So, at that point, you're going to have to deal with the reality that your stocks have been lowered because of it. And, as life in Lordland goes, it's time to get down and dirty and do what we have to do in order to get those stocks back up, or cut. Of course, you're going to have to look at cutting rations and all the way down the line. So, I could not send them away, but rules would change, definitely.
Interesting. So you would just accept it and just give up your supplies?
It's gonna, at that point, it's me against two other families, and I know if anyone's in my group to begin with, they're going to have the ability to shoot and kill me, quite honestly, because that's why they're in my group, is because they have the ability to do that. So if it's just my family versus two other families and it comes down to it, you have a choice between taking them out, which is going to be hard pressed because they're in my group to begin with. I would, you'd have to do a lot of evaluating. But if these people that I trusted to begin with thought it necessary to bring these other people, then I'd have to stop and take a deep breath and we'd have to work through that.
Very interesting. Alika, how did you handle the situation this happened to you? Would you do the same thing Laurie did, or would you approach it differently?
I would approach it a little bit differently. I mean, you're always better in numbers, but I would definitely take, 3 families? I would take my 33.3333% of the food shares and store them in my cabin or plot of land or whatever, or bury it elsewhere so it wouldn't have any chance of getting stolen while I'm out hunting or whatever. And just let the other families go about how to divide their food up, and I'll work on getting my family's food stock back up to 100%. Because, at that point, if the crap has hit the fan, there's no sense in sending it away. You're just going to send off pissed off people that are going to come back later. Yeah, they'll probably be mad for you taking your share, but I would just deem it as fair, and, we'll work together on every aspect of, security and, farming renewable food sources and whatnot. But as far as the food stock that's there, 33% of that sucker is coming into my possession automatically.
If they agree, right? If everybody is.
If they agree, they broke the protocol, and if they broke the protocol, I can break the protocol and take my fair share, because the card does say sacrificed financially. That's my Saturday night out with the wife money that I could have spent elsewhere, and I put it into food storage, and now I'm expected to share it with somebody that wasn't in part of the whole plan. Yeah, we would have to come to terms.
Interesting. How about you, G. Michael?
I kind of have to agree with Alika there. I actually agree with both Laurie and Alika. I wouldn't turn them away. I don't see how you can. Obviously, it also kind of depends on the situation that's at hand. If it's you said it was a complete collapse. Are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah. You said it was a complete collapse.
Yeah, and everybody bugged out.
Yeah. Well, I so with that, with that situation, I don't think you could turn them away. But at the same time, I think it is fair that the two families take their share to take care of them. I think that's only fair. And I would hope that the people that I decided that I would have a group with would have that understanding as well. If they want me to be understanding that there's additional people there, they'd have to understand that I'm going to take what is mine agreed upon.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. How about you, Dennis and Casey?
I appreciate going last. So I listen to talk radio a lot, and I don't think she's on the air anymore, but Dr. Laura used to have this thing where she said, the most important thing in relationships is to choose wisely and treat kindly. And I think that really relates to this. It's if you've chosen those original people wisely, then anybody they're bringing with them is probably going to not be a burden that you can't handle, or somebody that is going to tear you apart. So it really kind of highlights the idea, this question, that you need to choose wisely to begin with, right? And if you do, then I think you can sort of follow the same kind of ethical lay down the law protocol that you got into the original agreement with, which is these people need to pull their weight just like everybody else that was selected.
Yeah, and I think it seems taking that, your portion of the stocks there, but I think doing that kindly and making sure that the new group members immediately have a sense of what their contribution is going to be, kind of setting guidelines immediately, and making people feel like an integral part of the whole experience is going to be really important, an integral part of the community. And immediately sending them out to scavenge as immediately as possible to start to replenish those stores, because you said it's going to be months before the renewable resources are up and running, right? Like farm or whatever else is in planned. So
yeah, I totally agree. Casey's right. It's got to be they have to pull their weight, but I think that's what I'm saying with the choose wisely thing. It's if you take the first step, if you don't choose well, then everything else doesn't matter after that point. So the people that you originally are inviting to the group, you need to choose people with good judgment.
And the way you take your portion, that negotiation is so important. And taking that kindly, I think is the core of it. We're going to take this, but we're not going to do this in conflict, somehow.
Well, and you guys bring up a good point too. That initial core group that you have to be able to play in their heads and trust them to a point. I don't think there's anybody I 100% trust, but know what their actions are going to be. We can throw a curveball in. What if these families that were on their way to your bug out location, what if they met someone like a physician that could add a benefit to your group, and they made their decision at that point because there's no communication to bring them with them. They know them, they've associated with them in the past. They use their judgment. Now you have a physician in your group. That's invaluable.
So valuable.
Yeah, I mean, you can't trust anyone really, but what you can do is say that the relationships that are going to be good in your life are ones where there's mutual benefit. Yeah. And so if you're choosing smart people, then you have to respect the fact that if they're bringing somebody, there's a mutual benefit analysis going on.
Yeah. Well, so often though, in these kind of decisions, usually the first thing we want to do is shoot on sight, and I'd like people to slow down a little bit and know that, our first course of action is not always to do that. Let's stop and use some good judgment spin on this instead of, jumping on the bandwagon and, we're just going to shoot them and, and that's going to be the end of it. But their heads on stakes. That's not what we're about.
Who says that, Lori?
Well, he's out having a baby. I wouldn't know.
A Chris moment.
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys something. I can understand dividing the supplies that are already there. After all, the people that paid into it should have claim. But how about going forward from that moment on? Like if people go foraging, are you going to divide that stuff equally? Or do you still think that you're owed 33% because that's your homestead?
I'll jump in. I think going forward, it's all divided equally. If everyone's contributing, then it's all shared equally.
I would agree with that.
Going forward.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the easiest way to approach this, I think this is actually going to happen to people.
Yeah, of course it is. And the thing is, the reason you have to have it equal going forward is that once you decide you're going to welcome them into the group, then they have to be welcomed into the group. It can't be, we're going to keep testing you. We're going to, keep you at an arm's distance. It just can't be that way. And it goes back to what Dennis mentioned about if these are your friends in your core group, you already trust them, so you have to assume that their friends would be your friends too.
Well, here's a curveball, and Desert Hawk in the chat room brought this up. How far do you take this, though, to the point that your initial group becomes the minority in your little group at that point?
Interesting. It's true. If you open up and people just bring whatever they want, they'll say, yeah, we'll a little bit of food to share to get started, then we'll go foraging, we'll go do this and that.
When do you stop?
Well, I think everyone has a natural tendency for self-preservation anyway. I can't imagine one of your families would all of a sudden invite 20 families with them. I would hope
mine would.
What's that?
Eddie would. Oh God, yes.
Then that would be an issue then, possibly. Obviously, the number, if also like 100 people showed up, then you've got a problem then.
That's just ex-spouses and kids.
Well, there's something really compelling to the human emotional soul about weakness, where it's like you see somebody who's weak, who's being preyed upon, who's in trouble, and you want to help them often. But I think obviously that creates a really vulnerable situation for the whole group. Like, how do you guys, when you think about these questions, how do you deal with that weakness and inability to actually survive within your own life is something that's pretty accepted in our culture right now. There's lots of ways that you can kind of really mess up over and over again. In a situation like what you're talking about, that becomes less and less true and becomes more and more dangerous to the group. Like, what's the general ideology that you have about that question?
Yeah, we live in a world where natural selection is basically held back because of our technology, because of our everything of our infrastructure. Once that goes away, I think we're going back to being those situations where people are just going to go because they're not cut out for it. Now people who can't live in this world, they go get an EBT card, they can survive. They get their rent, they can survive. If they don't have the skills to produce something valuable to live in the world of today, they have somebody taking care of them as long as they keep voting for that person.
Well, isn't that what we're looking at, though, in a downgrade situation? It's like the layers of an onion. If there is a downgrade situation, those people will be one of the, we're talking about the sick and the elderly first. Unfortunately, it's reality. But then those people that don't have the skills, what layer of the onion, how long are they going to last? Are we going to have, how long will we have to last ourselves until we get past that stage in survival?
Well, what's your own ethical core about that? Because you guys have all thought about this a lot, G. Michael, I haven't read your books yet, but like, what is your, duty to other people? What is your belief on that situation?
Well, in my books, I put the characters through similar situations you're dealing with, and then I they react in their own way, and then I have my own feeling on it. Personally, I have two small children, and I really put a lot of weight on protection on them. If I didn't have them, I probably would be a little bit more generous with what I would give out. But knowing that I would have to be taking away from their ability to survive in order for somebody else to survive, it would be a dilemma for me. There's no doubt about it. It would get to a point where I would eventually have to refuse helping somebody I don't know because I knew that would shorten the possible lifespan of my own children.
Yeah, it's interesting because the thing is, I agree with what I think it was Aliko was saying about, survivability and stuff. But the other thing is like, dependence is turned into a commodity in our culture. It's like, you can sell things to people if they're dependent. And so like we have this real disease with that, right?
Hugely. And, that's one of the things we look at, how long will those people last before we don't have to deal with them any longer? Our goal is to outlast them.
Right. So it's a balance between like, empathy and cruelty in a way.
Mm-hmm. Well, my take on it is this. Right now, people with necessities, they can basically fulfill those necessities because some of the people who don't have, I'm talking about the group of people who don't have anything to offer, they're giving something they can offer in today's world. They have they're given money by the government. In a world where there is a downgrade situation and people need to go out and fend for themselves, if they don't do some work and produce something that will create value to exchange that for something they don't have, they have nothing. They're not going to come try and swipe their EBT card. In
an apocalyptic world where resources are dwindling quickly, I think it would be a lot of groups that would want to. You have to be an asset. You have to provide something to the group, and that's why I tell readers who read the books. You could be a prepper. You can have all these resources available, but every prepper could always lose them. So then what do you have as an asset? And what that is a skill set. You have to have something that you can provide to a group that will give you value. Otherwise, it could be a very tough thing for you out there. And I think this will be something that will evolve over time. It won't be that way initially, but eventually I think most people will most people's outlook and views will change as the time goes on and on.
Well, you bring up a good point. Our tangible preps are only going to last so long, and they'll be gone, and they'll have to be replenished. Time will determine that and what happens. And Michael is 100% correct. If you do not have a skill, at that point when your preps are gone, your physical preps are gone, you're of use to anyone.
Yeah, that's the common question that we get on the forum is with new preppers. They think they got to buy the latest high-speed gear and, 20 years of freeze-dried MREs and all that other good stuff. But the biggest thing you can do, even if you're on a tight budget, learn how to make a fire. Learn how to purify water with Clorox or use those water purification pills. Know how to use your preps. Just plain and simple.
Yeah, because I forget what I was going to go with that. But anyhow.
I agree with the salty old dog here. That is the opposite of this brainwashing. Like even if there is no collapse event, like all that information and all that knowledge and all that skill is really valuable to you as a human being.
Absolutely. And and what our conversation has shown me is that the rules are not going to change. in this world or the next,
No.
you have to be able to provide something of value. Whether you're an accountant now and then later use your soldering skills or you're a butcher of some kind, you have to do something because you have to give something up to trade for something you need.
And Leah's in the chat room. She's asking, how do you learn this stuff? There's all kinds of free information online. YouTube has a plethora of videos that you can watch to learn. Get contacted with some people in your area. There's prepper groups all over the place. There's, G. Michael, you were just at a prepper event in Arizona.
Yeah, I was at Prepper Fest Arizona for 3 days over the weekend.
Good place, something like that to get to and get hooked up and learn some things. But all kinds of free information. You don't have to pay for this stuff.
Yeah.
But let's bury this question, and it is 20 minutes till. So let's go on to another question before we run out of time.
I got one.
Alrighty.
How can you tell others about the need to prepare without making yourself a target for unwanted visitors in the future?
I got it really. So I'm going to go last.
I can tell you what I do, and I talk a lot about preparedness. And one technique I use, and I used this when I went to check out the long line at the grocery store the last time we had a blizzard in Indianapolis, which was about every other weekend this winter. You're standing there in line, and you just bring up everyday occurrences that's going on in the news. Hey, what are you getting there? And what's in your cart? Well, how are you getting ready for this storm? This is going to be, how much snow do we need this year? And it begins a conversation. And you're not discussing your preps. All you're talking about is the event that's going on and maybe things that, you're looking at to get prepared with. Should you be buying a bag of chips? Maybe you should get canned food instead. That's going to last longer. Or how are you in your house? You start asking people questions, and before you know it, they're telling you their life story. Most people are like that. And it's quite entertaining. My husband and I do this all the time. We'll go into a store and we'll start talking to people, cashier, the waitress, whoever. You start asking them questions. You can add some flattery into there, and before you know it, they're going to give you all kinds of information. And you just bring up, maybe I should go back and maybe I should get, some canned food instead of these chips. I don't think this is a good idea right now. This is only going to last tonight. If this storm lasts longer, maybe I should get, some more canned food or something like that. Easiest thing in the world to do.
Nice. Dennis, how about you? How do you do it?
Can you repeat the question real quick?
Sure. How can you tell others about the need to prepare without making yourself a target for unwanted visitors in the future?
He just makes movies.
Exactly. I don't think people pay much attention to the world in general. So you could probably tell people you have a stockpile of everything they could possibly need and they'll have forgotten it by tomorrow for the most part. So, I do think that Lori's right. That's a really good way to communicate with people. And I think that, obviously artwork is a good way to communicate with people. And ultimately, if somebody takes interest in the idea of preparing for a different type of world, they're probably going to be somebody that would be more of an ally than an enemy. So I don't know that it's that much of a concern, honestly.
Well, what do you do if you tell somebody, hey, yeah, I'm a prepper. And then 6 months down the line, oh, I don't need to prep. I'm just going to come to your house when the shit hits the fan.
Right. Okay,
they're saying this to you before or after shit hits the fan?
No, they just take advantage of you. Basically.
After the shit hits the fan?
Yeah.
And they have nothing to offer? Because you've just been talking about what do you do with that person at that moment? Jesus.
Yeah, well, when you're trying to
the movie that Casey and I made before this deals with like underground activist groups, and there's something called security culture in these groups, which is basically like you don't talk about things unless the person you're talking to about them needs to know it.
Yeah.
And you just have a consciousness of who you're talking to, why, and that there's a goal to your speech, and you're not just going off about whatever.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same thing. I think security culture is a good mindset to have in general in life, just for communication, you know. Talk less, listen more, have a goal to your communication.
Yeah. I don't think everybody needs to know about what you have.
I would, yeah.
Because the people know that what you have needs to be tucked away.
I would agree.
It's not visible in the front windows.
Yeah. And if anybody knows me personally and knows that I prep, and knows where I live, then they know that they can come here if they want to.
Oh, dude, Hawk's got it right. Personal Prep Club.
Mm-hmm. There we go. Prep Club.
So true.
Now, you know, Fight Club tells you everything you need to know about life. I have a question that I'm really interested in, if we have time for another one.
Sure, go ahead.
It's from the first deck, and I'll kind of end it. It's due to World War III, the infrastructure of society has gone back to a level not seen since the 1800s. Your help is now requested in forming the new government, and you can change or implement 5 laws as you see fit. What would these laws be and why? And we don't have time for 5, obviously, but I'm curious what, for you guys, is like the number one law that you would implement if you had that ability in a new government.
Well, I go first because I think about that kind of stuff a lot. And I even need 5 to make a major impact. But I think, I will do away with democracy. I know that sounds crazy, but think about it. Democracy is what? The will of the many over the few. That's what got us to where we are today. Is the politicians satisfy the will of the many, taking from you. So I think how you keep it fair and is basically somebody needs to have a level of understanding in order to vote. First of all, they need to show proof of citizenship. They need to be a taxpayer. Those 2 things alone would completely change our world now, because if you're going to vote vote somebody into office, you pay taxes, and you're a citizen, you're going to put somebody there who basically makes your life better as a working person. Right now, if you depend on the government, who do you put there? The people who basically make it possible for you to stay at home and still buy everything you need. And human nature basically makes people that way. You know, the great majority of people are not staying put. So I would change democracy in that way. I'll make it required for you to be a citizen and show that you're a taxpayer in order to vote. That's my take.
I would challenge one part of that answer, which is that the politicians, and you were breaking up a little bit, so I don't know if I got this right, but that the politicians administer the view of the many. I think politicians administer right now the view of the few.
Exactly.
You know, so that's kind of that changes things a little bit, or does it change things a little bit for you? I mean, democracy it's a tough system, but I don't think we have a democracy in this country right now. So doing away with what we have right now, great idea, totally behind it. But is that doing away with democracy? I don't know that it is.
I know where you're going, JD. You sound like Alexander Hamilton somewhat, with only certain people can vote. But I kind of agree with Casey at the same time. I don't look at our system essentially as a democracy, and we're supposed to be living in a republic at the same time. But we're kind of in almost this neo-fascist corporate state in a lot of ways. And I would agree with Casey that the politicians tend to really only favor the few, and those are those who are willing to pay for their favor. So, Yeah, I understand the issue that sometimes direct democracy can have, but that's why you have to have at least an established system like a constitution or some kind of a rule of law that you work from. You just can't have a pure democracy where just things change by the whims of the people. So I think having some kind of a document in place that establishes the rule of law would be the first thing that I would put in place.
Well, what's that one law that's the most important to you, J. Michael?
I'm looking at if we're coming right out of some kind of an apocalyptic event. We've been, taken back. What's one of the, like, just a very law that I would have that would be very, very painful, and that would just be theft. Where the theft of someone's horse could literally mean their life. The theft of food. Again, this is because we're looking at this as an apocalyptic situation where, theft could actually eventually equal the death of somebody. Death would be some kind of a misdemeanor. Death would possibly be an extreme felony or possibly a death penalty for it in that type of an environment until the system could be put back in place. So I would really punish thievery harshly.
Nice. How about you, Lika? What would you do?
I'm with G. Michael. I mean, the Constitution is the set of laws are there for a reason, but the terms of punishment would be accelerated because, like what G. Michael said, that what the example he gave of theft, stealing something like that, it would be their livelihood. The punishment would have to be swift and severe.
What would you have? What law would you, besides thievery, would you have?
It would have to be murder. It was the same importance as it would be right now in a rule of law, and without a rule of law, I think it's still one of the most important laws to have.
Hey, Lori?
Well, I would also add that if you don't work, then you don't eat. No more freebies. The only two classifications of citizens that I could understand would be taking care of the orphans and the widows. That is pretty much it. So the welfare system, I understand it was created for a hand up, but it has completely gotten out of hand. So that would go away. I would also limit the government, and I think that's where most of our downfall is here, is in with those two things. Limit the government so they cannot pass any laws that they themselves don't follow. Put term limits on them. Make sure that, when there is a vote, it's not by 50,000 dead people out there, which comes back to what JD said, that you have to be a citizen in order to vote, and there's a process involved there. But that being said, I think our government, our country here, unless things change and change fast, we're all in for a world of hurt.
I love that. I love that one of the first 5 laws should be to limit. You're part of the new governing society, and one of the first 5 laws you implement is to limit that.
Yeah.
Government. I mean, that's essential. Yeah.
I mean, our government is just totally out of hand. Totally out of hand. They're spending our tax dollars and sending it to other countries, whereas we have things here that we need fixed first. Rule 1 of survival is you take care of yourself first. You put your air mask on first to help other people survive. And we're not doing that.
Yeah.
Well, Dennis, what would you have?
Yeah.
I think all these answers are really interesting and good. I mean, it's interesting to me. I really do believe that our Constitution is a pretty spectacular document, and that, like, at the end of the day, property belongs to whoever can take it. Interest. And so, like, banning theft and all these things are sort of like, these are good ideas and they help society develop. But the kind of spectacular idea that the Constitution captured really, for me, was the idea of individual liberty and the idea that you have the right to your own life, which means that in a broad sense, nobody else can impose their religion, their labor, their sense of ideology on you. And so if there was a law that basically, put that into place, the pursuit, the right to the pursuit of your life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that is the most important thing. All these other things are great ideas, completely. But the thing that we need to respect, I think, as people in order to get along with each other is that you have autonomy as an individual and you can exercise it any way you like as long as it doesn't infringe on somebody else's. And that's a really unique idea in human civilization.
Well, I have a question on that one. We're forming this new government, and let's say my belief is if you've stolen something, and let's say it's something small and insignificant, or whatever, we would put you in jail for X amount of time. Your belief, and I'm just being hypothetical here, your belief is that you would have your hand cut off. So, how do we meld those together in order to create this one government, though? Because we're not all going to agree on what each other thinks these laws are going to be, though, based on our belief system.
Was that a question for me or for
yeah,
JD?
No, for you, Dennis.
Well, I don't think people should have their hands cut off.
Some people do, though, for theft.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
you're bringing in different religions, and yes, I agree. Live to your own ability with what you believe in, as long as you harm no one else. But we're bringing a melting pot together with different belief systems that one person might believe that for theft, just put them in jail, slap their hand. The other one believes that you cut their hand off.
Right. That's a good question. I can't say I have the answer to it. I do think all of these issues become slippery slopes when you deal with civilization. And the question of imprisonment and how you form prisons and how you form a penal system and how you form a judicial system are vulnerable to people who want power. And so ultimately, your legal system and your ideology as a country needs to be one that limits power, which is why I agree with you and Casey that provisions that limit power are essential, because any law you put in place is going to be vulnerable to power grab. And so, I think the punishment fits the crime is a great sort of base ideology. If you take something minor from somebody else, you should have something minor taken from you. If you take something major, you should have something major taken from you. And whatever whatever system we can put in place to sort of fairly and justly and without prejudice enforce those laws is the thing. And that's the hard part.
Well, maybe not the whole hand, just a little bit of the finger.
Well, when I was referencing having harsh penalties for thievery, it was also because I was looking through the context. We're coming out of an apocalyptic event where society probably devolved for a while into some kind of bloodletting. Once you get rid of the system and there's a loss of law and order, there's chaos, there's panic, and there's tremendous amounts of violence that will eventually happen. Eventually things will settle out and the new government or new systems will start to be created again. But there would be people, you have to look at it through the eyes of how would you view the world living through that event, knowing that there were marauders out there were people doing horrible things, and then forming a new government. It wasn't as not living in the eyes of comfortably sitting on our couch in 21st century America. Let's start a new country. But all of a sudden everything collapsed. And when things collapse, things are going to go to hell in a handbasket. But then eventually things will even out and then we can reestablish. So it's through that context how I was looking at things.
Right. It's like the necessary brutality of the Wild West, right?
Hey, it worked for them. Hey,
Yeah.
but we're down to 3 minutes, and before we leave, I want to make sure everybody knows how to find all of you guys. So, really fast, Dennis, why don't you give everybody a quick review where they can find you, what's going on, when it's going on, you and Casey.
So the movie that we just made is called Goodbye World. You can like it on Facebook if you're into that kind of thing. Maybe before that, it's called Bold Native. It's at boldnative.com. I'll type that in here, and that's pretty much it for us.
Thank you, Dennis and Casey, for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having us.
It was really fun.
Really cool.
It went fast. We'll see you guys back on the 15th, everyone. Be back here to join us on the 15th when we talk about after the movie comes out on April 4th.
Thank you.
G. Michael.
All right, hey, Lori, again, thanks a lot. Hey, Dennis, Casey, that was great. It was fun. You can find all my books anywhere at any Barnes & Noble bookstore nationwide, on Amazon.com, or go to my website at www.gmichaelhoff.com. Thanks again.
Awesome. Alika?
I'm with www.shtfradio.com, Prepping's Survivalist website. We welcome everybody. Don't forget about our giveaway. It's March 31st. Throwing up the links right now.
Oh, that's right. How can they find you, and what are you giving away? Holy yes, you just dropped it on the chat room.
Yeah, there you go. It's a hobo knife. JD's giving away two, deck 1 and 2 of Survival or Conflicted, and Chris is giving away a signed copy of his book, Eradication.
Awesome. They just go into the Rafflecopter and sign up, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. And JD, the man.
Cool.com. Chicks. If you want to tell others about crapping,